Welcome to the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Buy Box Bandits, episode 155. Last day of November, right before the best time of the year kicks off. So you guys listening to the right stuff. We're going to put you guys on a bunch of games today. Today, we're joined by Caj and Josh, natives of the Mecca, right? Southeast Pennsylvania, born for Amazon greatness. Right? The breeding ground of successful Amazon sellers. And these guys do online arbitrage and wholesale, 7 figures. So we're excited talking their story. I've known these guys for a while. Big fans of them, right? Garrett and Caj play at the same soccer league, which I just learned, which is interesting as well. But good. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
Yep. Glad to be here.
Yeah, super happy to be here.
Sweet. Absolutely. You guys got good audio quality too, especially you, Josh, right there. But cool. Sweet.
Josh was just saying off camera before we started recording, he was like, dude, I used to listen to the podcast driving to work back in the day. And he was like, dude, we can achieve this. We can get here. And here we are, full circle. Again, we've had a lot of full circle.
Dude, we have had so many full circle moments. It's been so incredible, especially over the past year. So
sweet. Yeah. Cool. So obviously, a lot of growth over the past year. Can you guys take us to how do you guys know each other? What made you get started with selling on Amazon? The private label beginnings that probably a lot of people don't know about.
For sure. Yeah. Josh, you want to take that or should I go?
Oh, why don't you start and then I'll finish.
Okay. Yeah. So Josh and I, we've known each other since middle school. We grew up, we were kind of close together, went to the same church, same middle school. We were both homeschooled. And we got into some business stuff in high school. We did some network marketing and we did that together. And then stopped doing that. And we wanted to find something else to do because we both just kind of had the business itch. At this point, we're in college and I'll never forget. There was one night where Josh sent me a YouTube video of a guy doing private label on Amazon. And he said, I think we can do this. And I watched the video and I said, I think you're right. Let's do it. And so we just pulled the trigger, bought a course for $500, followed all the steps, launched our first private label product, which kind of broke even, then launched a second private label product, which did well. And the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of funny about that is because as we were doing this private label, I don't know if you guys remember, there's another guy who had a course for what you guys do, OA. And it was always Crest toothpaste. That was his when you went on YouTube, his ad was I sell it for brands like Crest toothpaste. And I was always I don't know, seems a little fishy to me. Doesn't seem quite right. Probably scam. I won't go that area, but I was always in the back of my mind, oh, I wonder if we get to other brands on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And when we ended up that second private label that we ended up doing started to the profit started to dip down. Other people started to come into the space. I was quickly trying to figure out where can we pivot here to have maybe a little bit of a better opportunity. And that's when, RA came around and I started looking at RA a lot. And then we found the Buy Box Bandit podcast very soon into that and started realizing that there's pretty decent opportunity here. So yeah,
I mean, once you start listening to Buy Box Bandits, then your Buy Box ownership goes up, then the business starts to compound. A lot of things just organically kind of happen. So it's cool you kind of found I'm just kidding, the viewers. But it is kind of funny though, because I hear a lot of people come into the Amazon space through the private label lens. And to me, it's always seemed kind of counterintuitive. And so going kind of down that rabbit hole, how do you think the private label sector prepared you for what you inevitably did with the OA space and now ultimately the wholesale stuff?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to do it over again, I would not have started private label. Of
course.
But we learned Amazon in and out because with private label, you have to create a listing. You have to do more market analysis than just looking at a single Keepa graph for the product. We didn't even actually use Keepa when we were doing private label.
Yeah, we did.
But we learned how to run PPC, all that stuff. So when we started doing arbitrage, we didn't have to learn how to create a shipment. We didn't have to learn what Seller Central was. We just had to buy and ship it in. We kind of knew all of that already.
Yeah, that's what I liked about starting with books is I had a similar confidence when I got into OA. I'd only done books because there was no ungating back in the day, but I already kind of knew and trusted that it worked. I had seen and followed enough people online, which is why I think it makes sense as a beginner to just follow 1,000 Amazon people because you're just going to pick up on so many little intricate things. The algorithm's going to show you new people and stuff. which is big as well. So, okay, talk through kind of the timeline of, okay, we learn about OA and learn about RA, right? Getting into that kind of stuff. What does that process look like in terms of actually making that transition and ultimately growing it to what you guys have going today?
And I think like what really started, like what kicked off like the RA side of things for me was like I used to sell on eBay a lot when I was in college, like go to different like yard sales, like the Gary V style, like really grind it out. And so like I had a really good knack for like understanding like what's a good price for a certain item. And then it's just like finding the correct items that actually have a listing on Amazon to sell. So like I took that into RA. And so we were doing a whole bunch of RA. Then we found your course. And like, this is when we were doing like probably like maybe like 5 to 10K a month, somewhere around there. We found your course and I was like, this is exactly what I need. I just need to find where I can find other deals, like where I can find at Marshalls so I can buy it online, or like just a different like sourcing hints that you guys gave with like the keep analysis and all that kind of stuff. But that was like the really that next step that turned like RA into like a massive OA kind of cycle for us that really grew us from like that 5 to 10K area into that like 50 to 70K months. And then Caj started a whole bunch of wholesale. And then that kind of just took us to like the next level. So Caj, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and going back to the private label thing real quick. So the second product that we were doing that was selling well and profitably, it took off during lockdown.
Yeah.
And then after lockdown, the global supply chain was just such a disaster, like shipping from China to the US and cost of raw materials just ate all of our margin. And so that's what kind of forced us to have to pivot into RA and OA. And like Josh said, like he has that RA knock, that knack to just kind of find good products, but it was just more difficult to scale. And then when we were trying to figure out OA on our own, like we just couldn't find anything. So then that's where we needed extra help. But once we figured that out and we got to like 50, 60K, then this year is when we started to add in the wholesale piece. And that's what got us to 6-figure months.
So talk us through, and obviously there's a different dynamic in this podcast. There's two of you, right? So talk us through kind of the operation as it pertains to you guys working together, any VAs in the picture, warehouse, prep center. Give us the breakdown of how you guys operate together, bounce off ideas each other, and then ultimately the business.
So like in the beginning, it was very much just like me and Caj grinding it out. I was doing RA after work, not coming home till like late night, and then early morning next morning trying to find what I could find throughout the stores. And then Caj was more on like the business side of making sure things were like in stock, on seller, trying to like reprice on Seller Central, trying to reprice because we didn't have a repricer at that time. So he was working on reprice to make sure everything was like getting through and selling before like listings would, tank. If they started to tank, he would be there trying to sell through. So that was like the early dynamic. I was like going out trying to find the product. We would go we kind of worked out of my mom's garage. We still do to this day, just like tagging, setting shipments out of there. And then Caj would really be helpful on the back end, looking at stuff, trying to reprice and stuff like that. That's what we mainly did for a really long time. And then Caj would quickly start developing these skills to find products. Then he would source OA with me. So then we would both kind of attack the sourcing side. And it was challenging for me because I would be at like work and I'd be like, oh, dude, something just came in stock. You're like, you got to buy it now, dude. Like it's going to be gone before I get home. And he's like, yeah, jumping on right now, dude. So there was like some interesting dynamics there. And we also found this one product, which was like a fly catcher product from the Zevos. And they started flying FBM. So we were just like attacking all like Home Depots and Lowe's that we could find to try to like gather as many as we could. So that was always fun. Yeah.
And in the RA days, our strategy was kind of like Josh would find a product and then he would, because he works in Delaware. So he would like hit every Marshalls and TJ Maxx, like in the Delaware area. And I'm in Westchester. And then I would hit every Marshalls and TJ Maxx in like the Exton, Glen Mills area. So we would just, because there were two of us, we were able to hit like 8 to 10 different stores and just clean them out, which was pretty effective.
Yeah.
So at that point, we were both working full-time jobs. At the end of 21, I left my full-time job to go full-time in the business. Josh is still working full-time as a PT. So I pretty much run all of the day-to-day operations, but him and I talk every single day, bouncing ideas. off each other, trying to figure out what the next move is, so on and so forth. In terms of like, I guess the structure of the operation. So everything wholesale goes through a prep center. All of our OA we do in-house, and we have some friends and family that help us with prep part-time. And then we have 3 VAs. So one is an admin, the other is a OA sourcer, the other is a wholesale sourcer. And then that's kind of how we are able to get all of our leads and run like the pretty much anything that's repetitive in the business goes through them. And then we also have one friend working for us, and he's our full-time buyer.
Yeah, I think dude, speaking of having friends and family prep, dude on Twitter yesterday said you got to pay the younger siblings, but the girlfriend is free labor. I thought that was an interesting an interesting preposition there. One thing that was super relatable was like talking, and it's cool because you guys are obviously partners, and like how you can collaborate and talk through different opportunities. This thing's in stock, you got to buy it now. That's like the key to everything with this stuff, man. It's having those people you can bounce ideas off of, whether it's a formal partnership or not formal, the way Garrett and I, and our other friends and such, and I know you guys have a bunch of friends too, can bounce ideas off each other. But that's why it's so important to be meeting other people that are doing it and stuff like that. Now you guys have done a great job of that too. So you can talk about how the Amazon community, and I think I follow you guys on Twitter and Instagram, right? Am I because I've Twitter and Instagram, right? You guys both active on?
Yeah. So we were more active on Instagram kind of when we first started being active on social for Amazon stuff, but now I'm like really focusing on Twitter. I love written form content.
That's how it was for me. I was heavy on Instagram for the first probably 2 years, and then over the past year, I've made a big push on obviously Twitter and YouTube. And so your transition into wholesale happens this past 2023 calendar year. How did that start, and kind of how did that come about? What was like your tactic or your strategy in terms of reaching out to companies, brand direct, distribution companies? I know you have a good story about actually pulling up to a distribution company in person. So kind of give us a rundown of how 2023 has unfolded with your successful now transition to wholesale.
Right. Yeah. So in 2022, when we were doing OA, both Josh and I knew that we wanted to get into wholesale. Just dealing with OA, trying to keep track of leakage, dealing with order cancellations. There's just a certain point where you're like, okay, like OA is still a great opportunity. We're still doing OA. We still plan on doing some OA just because there's certain products you just can't pass up. But it's just from a ability to spend capital. We knew we wanted to get into wholesale. So Q4 of 2022, I probably listened to every podcast out there on wholesale and just took copious notes. So that way, when I was ready to start calling distributors in the beginning of this year, I kind of had all the information that I needed.
Talk about Miami.
Talk about what?
Miami. I feel like that's where it really started. Yeah.
The seller conference?
Yeah.
Who we stayed with? Oh yeah. Well, no, you tell that story.
Okay. So we have a friend, Grant Farmer. He used to sell on Amazon. And I feel like this is where like a lot of our wholesale advice and like expertise comes in, because Grant ended up reaching out to Corey, who's like massive wholesaler, and he was like, oh, like Corey needs somewhere to stay. He hasn't booked a place. Like, do you mind if he just stays with us? Me and Caj were like, sure, like whatever. Like we already booked this Airbnb. So we ended up spending, what was it, like 2 days out there, I think, Caj, for the seller conference.
It was at least 2 nights.
Yeah, 2 nights. And we were just peppering Corey with all sorts of questions. And he was a really cool guy. So he kind of took Caj under his wing a little bit and helped him out with like a whole bunch of like wholesale strategy. They did a whole bunch of calls there. And that's where I feel like we really picked up a lot of momentum on OA, because we had like all like the software knowledge, how to call wholesalers, like where to go. Is it a good distributor? Is it a bad distributor? Like all the questions that, can really kind of cut the learning curve for wholesale rather quickly. And then we kind of just jumped like full steam into wholesale. I guess that was Q4 of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Caj?
No, that was Q1 this year.
Q1.
So we got the in with Corey before he was a celebrity. But yeah, so story about the first wholesaler that we got. So one way that you can contact wholesale distributors is just, and I wish I had something laying around here, but a lot of products will have like a name of the distributor or manufacturing on the back of the packaging. And so what I would do is any OA product that was a brand that I thought we could wholesale, I would just take a picture of that, upload it into Drive, and then one of my VAs would transcribe all that information so that we could either email or call them, and I would kind of batch it. But this one, for some reason, I was like, I'm just going to call them right now. Why not? So I'm literally in the middle of prepping an OA shipment, and then I just decided to call the number on the back. And it's a huge brand, one everyone would recognize. And I got like their customer service, and I was just like, hey, looking to sell this product in bulk for my retail store. And I obviously knew that I wouldn't get like an account direct with them because they're so huge. So I was just asking like, who are your distributors? And the lady was like, oh, you can get this at Sam's Club or Costco. And I was like, I know that. That's not what I need. And then like I dug a little deeper, and she was like, oh, I see what you're saying. Call XYZ company. I was like, okay, cool. So I looked them up, and lo and behold, they're 5 minutes down the road from us. And I was like, I've been passing these people like once a week my entire life, and I had no idea they were there. So I called them up, and I believe it was a Friday. And when I called, like someone answered right away, which I wasn't expecting. And I asked if I could talk to someone in sales, and they said that the sales team was out for the weekend, so follow up the next week. And I told Josh, I was like, dude, I think this account, I feel good about this. I think we're going to land this account. This will be like our first legit account. He's like, dude, we're not calling them again. He's like, we're just pulling up. I was like, sweet. So the following Tuesday, we just pulled up to their warehouse, huge warehouse, massive warehouse. And we were like, okay, we're probably out of our league. But we went up to the door, and it's like locked. You have to have a keypad or whatever to get in. So I hit the buzzer, and I was like, hey, this is my name. I'm looking to open an account. Can I talk to someone in sales? And she's like, who are you?
An appointment?
Yeah, she's like, do you have an appointment? I was like, no, I do not. She's like, well, you need an appointment. I was like, well, I'm here now. Can I have an appointment now? And then she was like, I'm going to put you on hold. I was like, oh no, she's going to turn us away. So she put us on hold.
And like me and Caj are like, oh, dude, this was like, maybe this wasn't the greatest idea, dude. Like, nice freaking cars, like very nice cars. And we're just rolling up in this like beater. Like, so we're just like parked in their parking lot, a whole bunch of like a Land Rovers, like Porsches. And then she answers us back. And she's like, yeah, like you can come in. Someone will wait on you. So me and
so we're just like in like the little, it's not, I wouldn't even call it a lobby. It's barely a lobby. It's more like a little vestibule. And so like a lady from sales came out, and she was super nice, talked with us. We maybe had like a 15 or 20-minute conversation. We talked for a while.
She was really nice.
And she was honestly confused about like what we did. She was like, e-commerce, Amazon, Shopify. I was like, yeah, it's like just like retail except selling online. So we kind of explained what we did. I think she just liked the fact that we were two young guys just trying to make it in business, figuring out what we were doing. She was like, okay, well, I'll talk to my director and see if, we can open an account for you and get you guys going. So then continue to follow up over the next week or two, got the account open, started going through the catalog, which was massive. And then was able to place our first order. And through that process too, like I was able to ask Corey questions, and he was very helpful as well. But yeah, that's how we got our first account. I'd been sending tons of emails, making tons of phone calls.
Wow.
But the first one was when we just pulled up in person and had the conversation face to face and built the relationship.
And that made every other thing easier, probably. Everything's easier.
100%.
Yeah, yep.
100%.
Yeah, I saw it on KT House's video. She's like, dude, just show up. Like, don't even call. I was like, facts.
I know he's
bet.
Say less.
Yeah. Like I know that's.
But and to think so many people are not afraid but uncomfortable picking up a phone and won't do it.
Yep.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So afraid of being embarrassed, right? It's people will do anything to meet other Amazon sellers except post videos of themselves on the internet, which is
It's, and I mean, especially with wholesale, right? Because it's a relationship game versus OA, which is very transactional. And just like a tip for the listeners and from my own experience, like all of the wholesale accounts that we have where we have the most profitable items and spend the most are all people who I've seen their face. Most of them I've shaken their hand too. Some of them it's just been a video call, but I don't have like any good accounts that have just come from only sending an email or one phone call. It's all been either video chat, consistent phone calls, or meeting them in person by pulling up, or from meeting them at a trade show like ASD.
I mean, and that is super noteworthy. That's something that everyone should be taking away. To kind of finish the timeline of that initial story, the going to the warehouse, getting the account sort of thing. So now you have the catalog, right? Thousands and thousands of SKUs, I would imagine. What's that next step look like? How did you start to process that information? Were your VAs doing it? Were you guys tag teaming it? And ultimately, how did you come to placing that first order? And take us through that.
Yeah. So once that account was open, it was kind of just like, all right, all hands on deck. We got to get to this as quick as possible to try and make something happen. So my strategy whenever we have a distributor that's got tons and tons of products is always just go through every brand first, see which brands are good, and then dive into the brands that are selling well. So tons of brands I've never heard of. And it's just like, okay, let's get every single brand onto a spreadsheet and then just one by one see if there's potential to sell this brand. Is it selling on Amazon? Is only Amazon selling it? Is it private label? Is there velocity? Is the average selling price even high enough to make a potential margin? Right. So then once we check through all of those boxes, then because they have like an online portal, it wasn't a spreadsheet. So I kind of had to go into each brand individually and then download the SKU list and then forward that to my VA. And then that was kind of the process. So brand level and then product level, and then kind of everyone just all hands on deck. Let's get through this as quick as possible and put together an order.
Absolutely. And then switching it up a little bit. Obviously last December was your guys' first Q4, really hitting it heavy. What are some things you've learned, some mistakes you made, and stuff you're doing differently this year?
You want to take that one?
Yeah.
Well, here, I'll give a mistake that we've made twice 2 years in a row is not buying enough.
Yes.
And this is saying that,
dude, it's crazy. And it's
yeah.
like, there's some products where, I mean, it's a replen product that we've been selling for over a year. So we were selling it last year too. And even going off of that data, I was like, all right, I'll buy more than I think I need. And we're still like almost out of stock, and it's not even December.
We're not even close.
Crazy.
Replen FBM.
Yeah. I think one mistake that we did have this year was, like when you get a wholesale, like when you start having like relationships in the wholesale business and they start shooting you, some like deals that you think that can be like potentially good. You want to create a relationship, but maybe you don't have enough capital, or like that would be pushing the capital there a little bit. I think we've done that maybe just a little bit too much this year, which might limit us a little bit for Q4 in terms of our ability to spend. And those products maybe didn't end up where we wanted to be in terms of like our final sale price and all that kind of stuff. So that's one lesson we definitely learned this year. So taking that into consideration when you do first start wholesale, kind of ease into it. A lot of people will like to just jump into it, which is fantastic, but you can learn some tough lessons along the way. So that's just one thing with wholesale that's a little different than OA.
Yeah, so let's dig into that a bit more, right? Because it's a huge mindset shift in terms of maybe having a wire, right? Maybe dealing with a 4 to 6 week turnaround time as opposed to the product being at your house in 3 days. So talk us through how you guys kind of got adapted to that new way of doing business, the turnaround time, the wires, not being able to leverage as much credit. Kind of walk us through that.
Well, I don't think we can use the phrase adapted in the past tense. I think we're still adapting.
Currently adapting.
Currently adapting. It's a process.
Currently adapting. But I mean, yeah, it's big. And it's good to be aware of that when you go into it. And it's also going to depend on the supplier, right? Because I have one supplier that I met at ASD, and they can ship directly to Amazon and do prep for us. And the prep fee that they charge is cheaper than my prep center. So, I mean, that is like almost even faster than an OA, because I can order the product and then it'll be shipped out in 2 days. But that's not normal, right? Like I have one order that I placed in like the middle of October that I was expecting to be in like 2 weeks ago, and it's still not here. And so that's kind of tied up some capital that we could have already been re-spending on more stuff for OA that we could be, flipping FBM or putting into other wholesale orders. So yeah, it's definitely an adjustment. And I think like what Josh was saying, a lesson that we've learned is like, specifically if it's like one product or just a couple, trying to keep our total available capital. Like, so if we have like, let's say 100 grand in spend available, not making one deal like more than like 15 or 20% of what's available, because then if that capital is out of your, if it's spent and then it's stuck for, 2 months, 3 months, it's like, okay, that's just essentially money that you've lost that you could have been flipping in other ways.
So we are just about to hit December, and typically how like the calendar year works is obviously everyone has a euphoria hit of Q4 making a lot of money in terms of OA, but a lot of focus then inevitably gets kind of shifted to starting a big bad wholesale business the following Q1, right? January, February. I feel like there's always kind of a buzzword of wholesale going around where everyone starts to shift. I'm sick of OA, let's do wholesale, right? And so inevitably there will be people listening to this episode January, February 2024. Like, to those people that are just getting going with wholesale, what's that 90-day game plan look like to guarantee their first maybe 1 or 2 accounts, guarantee their first order gets placed? Talk us through from an existing OA business, 0 to your first wholesale order.
Yeah. So the first thing is just going to be making a list of distributors to call. And the easiest way to do that is just Google search. So what I was doing when we were first looking for distributors is Philadelphia grocery distributor, Philadelphia beauty distributor, Philadelphia tools and automotive distributor, and just literally putting that into Google and then going through and seeing what results come up, copying and pasting all of those emails and phone numbers onto a spreadsheet and doing that for a couple of days. And then the next few days, just going through and emailing and calling every single one of them. And then you'll get some responses. You won't get some responses. I'd recommend making sure you have a spreadsheet that's like organized so you can tell like if you need to follow up with someone or if they responded to you, if they sent you, an application, you need to fill it out just to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And then if you do that enough, eventually you will get some accounts open. And then the next step is sourcing through the catalogs. Some stuff isn't going to be profitable. Some stuff might be profitable. You're definitely not going to be seeing OA margins of 30 to 40% right off the bat. You're going to get those higher margins as you build a relationship, but it can be expedient to like place an order, maybe even 10 to 15% margin, and just say, hey, I want to work with you for a long period of time. Is there room to work on this pricing if I'm able to place bulk orders and we, build a solid business relationship? And if that potential is there, then just place the order.
Boom. And then, right, the quicker you can get through those first 100 cold calls or cold emails, or ideally both follow-ups, the quicker you're going to learn. It's the same thing with legit anything, but you just got to get to that. And there's like some people been working on starting wholesale for years, you just gotta break into it. And, you obviously had that cool situation with the in-person and such, but then that comes back to you position yourself well, existing on the internet. Corey trusted you. You trusted Corey because you guys both mutually exist on the internet. So you end up staying together, in the Airbnb and such, which is pretty cool as well. How do you see it evolving? Because you have an interesting situation where you do the OA in-house and the wholesale preps ended up, which is typically flipped on what typically exists. That's the Southeast PA, no sales tax though, right? But how do you see this evolving?
Yeah, Josh, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think we've kind of discussed a little bit of going at 100% prep center. I think that's what we're looking forward to. I know Caj is looking forward to, just based off, we've had some issues with, employees not coming into work and, or not having enough staff for what we need to get through for the day, which kind of can cause issues because then we're working on like just not bad at work on weekends, but then, you got to pick it up during the weekend, get a batch out Saturday. So we're definitely looking at 100% kind of prep center. That's one thing we're kind of looking forward to. I think as we go along, I think OA is going to start to kind of decrease in our percentage of revenue. So I think it'll probably be around like that, probably 10 to 15%. We really want to increase the amount of wholesale percentage per total revenue in a month, probably to around probably in that 70% area. And then we're looking forward to maybe contacting some brands that aren't as popular and seeing if we can maybe get some more brand direct clients under our belt. So we can that kind of really helps you and isolates you to have great listings on Amazon that'll produce income for a long period of time without the the IP complaints, the return inauthentic complaints, and all that kind of stuff that you can get even with wholesale, like you can get them a lot with, OA, but even wholesale, you can get those as well. So that's kind of like the future of where we're kind of turning. So,
Yep. Yeah.
You guys
and
think you're
on
gonna
that,
be strictly holiday OAers?
probably
Hey,
we'll see
at some
We'll
point.
see.
yeah.
I always relate that to
but
like
like I
the,
said,
the big holiday churchgoers, like the people who go to church like Christmas, the Easter. You just show up for it, show away Black Friday, Cyber Monday, back to
Well,
school.
we have some good OA replens that
We do.
are kind of year round, and that's because we're in PA and we have no sales tax on clothes, so there's some clothing items that we hit pretty consistently. But yeah, the future for us is definitely building out brand direct exclusive and also going multi-channel. Like, so we got our Walmart account active. One of my goals for the rest of this week is to get some products listed on there, start selling on Walmart. And then, if we're brand direct exclusive, also maybe managing like a Shopify website for those brands as well. So we can get them on Amazon, get them on Walmart, get them on Shopify, and really just kind of be like a e-commerce, like general solution company for them where they can partner with us. And then our goals are aligned, have more control over the supply chain. Like Josh said, not worried about IP complaints, margins are a little better, so on and so forth.
And from a value perspective, I mean, you can't beat that. Being able to offer Shopify expertise, Walmart expertise, Amazon, right? In terms of disassociating from the common Amazon seller, that's a game changer. But awesome. Thanks for joining us, guys. Where can people find you on socials?
Yeah, so I'm at Caj Robinson, just my name, Cajua Robinson. Most active on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Same. Twitter, Joshua_Dambman, DAMBMAN. I know it's a long one. But if you go to Caj, you can always find me. Caj is our main
way back to Josh.
Yeah, you can find me somehow through that loop. So that's pretty much what I'm on right now. So yeah.
Well, good stuff. Shout out to all our loyal Buy Box Bandit listeners. Miles, thanks for joining us as well. Where can people find you?
I tasked Garrett with doing the outro on this one.
That's why I started laughing like a couple of minutes ago because Miles was like, "Oh, you wrap it up. Let's see how you do it."
I was planning on Garrett not asking for the social, so I was gonna roast him on that. But luckily, he checked all the boxes. So go check out Caj and Josh online and see what they're up to and such. Thanks for coming on, fellas.
Thank you, boys.
Peace.